Hey everybody, it's Scott Detweiler here, and we're going to do some retouching today. So as you see, I have my new video up and operational. So now we can actually, well, you can look at me, but I can't look at you. I've also launched my membership area today. As you know or may not know, I've closed down my Patreon and moved kind of that whole mindset here to YouTube. So I'm on a single platform, so I can do everything kind of in-house. Now, it's kind of a new system for them, so they're still adding a lot of the abilities for us to get information to you. And a lot of that will be in the, what they call it, the community area inside of the channel. So I'm going to, my plan there, so I'll make this very brief before we start the whole retouching thing. So there's a lot of things that I want to do on this channel, but there's a lot of things that I don't want to show the general public because in the print competitive world, you can't really let anyone see the work that you're working on, because if the judges recognize it, they have to recuse themselves. And if you have enough judges that can't judge it, then you're disqualified. And if you're working in international circles and things, you have no idea who your judges are going to be. And a lot of judges are friends of mine. I have to be super careful. So I want to do that. But then there's also a lot of other projects I'm working on that I really just can't show. I have clients, and the contracts oftentimes say that I can show things privately. And I've moved a lot of the verbiage to say that I could do them on YouTube to a limited audience. So there's a lot of things like shoots where I'm working on those, and obviously the post-production part of that. So I want to share a lot of that, plus things in body painting. So I do a lot of body painting, but I obviously can't share that on YouTube in general, but I've actually talked to YouTube about it, and I can share those on my channel. So channel membership is going to be kind of a different thing. That's not to say the regular channel is going to suffer for it, but you're going to see the focus on membership being a lot more intensive per se. So what I want to do today is I want to work through a session I did a few weeks ago with a few lovely ladies, and we did some very basic body painting on the chest and the arms, and then kind of a mermaidish type feel to it. And then we went to a dam over in Fall River, Wisconsin, and we shot kind of there on the rocks. And it was a lot of fun, and we had a great time, and it was the first time I've actually got a chance to shoot. But it was at great distance and so on. Except for the body painting part, of course. But if you do this thing safe during this whole virus thing, then everybody stays well, and that's the goal. So what I want to do today is I want to work through some of those inside of Capture One, and then obviously we're going to go into Photoshop and we're going to mess with them and see what kind of magic we can create. If you are not familiar with this channel, I'm not your typical photographer, and then I'm just going to kind of retouch it a bit, change the colors a bit, and then call it good and move on. I want to make a piece of art. So I'm not going to kick out 50 pictures. I'm going to kick out one or two that I want to be print level competitive. So something along those lines. Tormund, good morning. He's from Norway, a frequent flyer for the channel, and I appreciate those folks who take the time to watch the stream. I'm trying to arrange the time a bit, and I'm wondering what you think about this timing. So this is probably 9 in the morning for me, and I noticed you guys are about 7 to 8 hours ahead of me, and I have a lot of European viewers, so I thought this would be a good time to put these on. So I'm going to do these live streams, and I'm going to move these then probably to the member area after a while, but I'm going to do live streams only in the member area as well. I retouch every day, and not to say that I'm going to stream every day, but I do plan to stream as often as I can to really make that membership worthwhile. So without further ado, let's go over and work on these things and see what we can do. All right, so we have here the lovely Rachel, and we have Kari, and we have Katie. And if you were present on the last live stream, we worked on one of these pictures of Katie. It should be down here somewhere. Oh, no, it won't be, because we're in the capture folder. Remember that as we get our work done, as we did the shoot, it was in the capture folder. And then what I do is I want to go through the capture folder, find the best images. So I haven't really done a lot of culling on this set, but slowing the shutter speed down here to 40th of a second and firing a strobe at the end so we can kind of lock in that movement. Which one of these pictures do I love? I don't think she would like that one, so I'm going to delete that one. So obviously I need to go through and cull this set. So there's a bit of a blink, we'll delete that one. And I have my delete key, by the way, set to X. I just think that's a good, very Lightroom friendly kind of transition. So P would be your flag for like inside of Lightroom, and I have my P key set to physically move the file from my capture folder to my select folder. And if you're not familiar with sessions inside of Capture One, These are actually physically different folders, and because of that, you can do a lot more with it, I think. Let's move this over here. So you see here, mermaids and falls. Everything is in the capture file or folder by its outset here. This is almost 10 gig worth of pictures, and then I've moved a few of them into selects, just 414 megs. So we're still pecking through that process. Typically, I like to cull all of my images just right away, but I've been way behind. And as I said, this was a kind of a fun shoot for me, and client work has to obviously come first. So some of these are going to be blurry. We're still playing with that. Her husband, Chris, is holding the light up there. Light test, we'll just delete that one. You want to make sure you go through and delete these things so that you're not backing them up for years. You know, just go through and cull things quickly. So looking at hand position here. So I should talk a little bit about what I do when I'm culling. I'm looking for things to put in print competitions or to deliver the quality of work that people expect from me. So when I'm doing so, I want to make sure that I'm looking at a lot of different things with, make sure the volume is good, by the way. If you have any questions or complaints about the volume, please let me know. I've got a little bit different mic configuration set up here, and I want to make sure that that is sounding decent to everybody. Hand position is a big one. For example, typically having the back of the hand toward the camera. Now this is at an angle, so this probably wouldn't be that big of a deal. Now I'm just looking at the eyes, trying to figure out if I like this better or this better. I do like, and this is going to be really picky, but that pointer finger not touching the leg is nice. I like it. It adds a little bit of delicateness to the hand, and she knows that. So you'll see that she's very cognizant of her hand position. And I do like the tip of the head here. So now let's check and see if it's in focus, and it is. And we want the toes pointed. We never want flat feet. So I do like this picture. So let's go ahead and hit P on that one, and that will move it. I don't like this one as much as the last one, so I do like the tip of the head, but I'm just kind of working through. This is different enough from the previous one in focus, and look at that, just knowing where her fingers are and how they should be used. You don't want to use, typically use the pointer finger. You want to use that second and third fingers to kind of touch, if you're going to touch something. I would have preferred the front pad of the finger touching this, but this is nice. Because finger position is something that judges look for. So I do like this picture. It's not my favorite, but I do like this one better, where she's looking down, so I can actually see the makeup that she's wearing. Because a lot of nice time and a lot of nice time and effort went into the hair and makeup by Katie, who was the one we took pictures of last time. She's probably not going to want that one. So my bad for not going through and culling these sooner. I typically like to cull them right away, so they don't get backed up to the NAS devices, which they are. So I have a little bit of house cleaning to do. I do like this one. Okay, so I do want to work on more of a portrait-y type picture today, though. So I'm going to start here, and I did cull through a few of these. But I'm just looking. There's a few ways now to look at focus. If you're not familiar with Capture One, has a really cool focus mask. If it's not there, you can right click and choose Customize, and then find it in here and just drag it up into that bar. But it looks like this. So you just turn it on, and it'll show you everything that's in focus, and it'll turn it kind of a green. So you can quickly look at your thumbnails and determine whether or not things are in focus. And it's pretty good. It's not foolproof. For example, it's telling me this one's not in focus on her face. So let's go look. So I'm using Control Space Bar to zoom in, and you see that sure enough, it is not tack sharp there compared to the skin on her shoulder. So it is indeed correct. Although I do love this pose, so let's hope I refocused, and I did. So here we go. And this one should now be in focus, and it is. So I do use this quite often. So if you don't have it, again, you can just right click, choose Customize, and then drag it up there and turn your focus mask on. It's just one tool for helping you cull quicker. It's not the only tool, but it's the one that I use quite often just for a real quick pass. Because if you look at this picture, it's huge. I mean, this is a giant Sony a7R III photo. This might not be tack sharp, but not for print competition because that'll matter, but just in general, this picture is probably quite passable for the model because it's going to be downsampled to 8.5 by or 8 by 10. It might be downsampled just for social media. No one is going to notice that it isn't tack sharp in the face at this resolution. But if you're going to print it or whatever, yeah, you can't do that. You're gonna hate yourself for that. So just looking at a few more of these and deciding what I like. I don't mind that one. So I'm hitting P to, again, move these. And I do like the movement here. And I like the eye contact. That's nice. Sometimes the green is hard to see through. You can, inside of your preferences, change the color of the focus mask if green is not doing it for you. Okay, all right, so let's turn that off and let's go to select. So these are the ones that we have now shortlisted. These are the best of what we've gone through so far. So I have 9 images out of the, how many did I shoot originally? 114, and we haven't even called Kari's session yet. And I haven't checked a lot of Rachel's at the waterfall. But again, I'm a 1 or 2 person picture for these types of personal projects because the amount of time it takes to put into it. And you're watching the stream here. We're probably taking an hour to retouch that picture of Katie last time. And it's a great picture. And, you know, she may get their printer or I may get it printed and put it up. But I'm not going to do 10 of those or 15 of those. And that's kind of the difference between a personal project and a client project. I am the client and I pick the pictures I like and I retouch the pictures I like. And I retouch as many pictures as I like. If these were clients, meaning they've paid for the shoot and so on, then there's a certain standard I have to change to. And I don't know if you guys are interested in me talking about sales or type of packages that clients purchase, the products that my clients tend to like. I could make a whole separate video on that type of thing because there's certain products that I really enjoy and that shows when I'm talking about, hey, this is what I think you should buy and why I think you should buy it. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, let me know and I can kind of work on videos along that lines. But I want to work on one of these today. One of these portrait pictures. I just really liked these and I really like this one. So I think this is the one we're going to do. So I have my tilde key set to show or not show the picture that's currently featured or highlighted. Control B on your keyboard turns your browser on and off. So if you're looking to close that or minimize it, I'm a big fan of shortcuts. Now I made the tilde key hide this. I think V is the default, but I just tend to find myself going for the escape key usually when I just want to get out of something, and the tilde key is right underneath it. So to me, that was an easy switch. So again, just that's up under edit keyboard preferences, and you can change all those to whatever trips your trigger. All right, so I want to do this one today. So we've got good focus. I do wish her eyes were a little bit more toward me, just so there's not so much white in the eye. So I know that this is probably not going to win a print competition, but I do love the rest of the picture. It's just fabulous. The amount of texture in the outfit that she made and the crowns that she made, and then the texture in the body paint and this fabric is all good. Yes, the crop is a little weird because it's above or below her major joint, her elbow. I might try and see what we can do with that by changing it to sound like an 8 by 10 type of crop and see if we can make it so we're still getting a bit of that outfit but cropping at the elbow. It's not exactly the same thing, is it? So, do I have one with more of her? Just looking at the arm, maybe this one. Just trying to find one that's similar. And I think this one might be the one I'm going to pick. Let's move that over into the selects folder as well, because I do want a bit more of the hand. Focus is fine. So something like this. So I do want to see her hand, and note that hand position again, not having the back of the hand toward the camera. I love when people are cognizant of that. We don't want to see the veins in the back of the hand. And just the way she's gripping the fabric is nicely done. Just a great model to work with. Just and an awesome person too, which is a nice combination. Nobody wants to work with grumpy people, right? Okay, so now let's see. Let's start inside of Capture One and do our standard retouching. So what I like to do first is look at any of these types of things. I use the extra shadow. You can use whatever trips your trigger, but I do like the extra shadow just because when we come back out of Photoshop, then we're going to go and look at increasing contrast and changing things along that lines. So I want to look at that, and we don't really have to worry about any of this other stuff. White balance is completely subjective here. We really don't care. We could white balance on the sclera of her eye. If we want to. That makes it a little bit more tealy. Okay with that. This is not the sharpest picture, and that's actually really bothering me. All right, so maybe I am wrong about that. I want a sharper picture. You know what? I think I might just stick with this one, even though it's got a weird crop. I just love this, the whole texture that's showing off here. We might just suffer through the crop. It doesn't, I don't know that it bothers me that much. It's one of those rules they say don't do it. You know, I actually like it more like this. I'm going to go with it. What do you think? I think it's a beautiful picture. It's in focus. It shows off all these wonderful textures in here. Yes, the crop is a little weird, like lopping off her arm here, but oh well. By the way, why you're seeing this watermark here is because my last selected recipe is the one that has the watermark available. So if I just click off that recipe, that'll go away, so we're not staring at that. Okay, same thing, going in here, extra shadows where I want to start. And then let's look at exposure. So her crown is really bright, and it's probably throwing a warning just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull that back with the highlight recovery. So I do like the light on her face though, so I don't want to affect that. So I'm going to do is I'm going to hit B for brush. And even if you don't create a layer right away, you just hit B for brush. You can brush and it will create a layer for you. So I just want to do this just on the crown and pull the highlight down there. I don't want to do the highlight everywhere, just there. Because I do like the highlight on the side of her face. And we do see David saying you can selectively sharpen the eyes, detail. That's true, but sharpen and focus are different things to me. So sharpen is a way to rescue focus, but I would rather, you know, have the option to say sharpen the eyes afterwards. In fact, I do that often enough. I have a preset inside of my clarity, which is in here, called eyes. And all I do is use that just on the eyes to kind of add that little bit of sharpness and so on. But if the focus isn't there, I kind of walk away from the picture because it's going to bother me forever. And it may not bother anybody else, but you know, because they're not going to see it the level, the resolution I am, but I'm going to know it's not in focus, and that's going to bother me. So yes, so I'm gonna take the focus over the little bit of an odd crop just because this whole area is so texture laden. I'm gonna say I don't care. So I'm gonna divorce myself from the fact I cropped her hand off. And at some point, you kind of gotta say, I want to see more of her pretty face than I want to see her whole body. Because at some point, you gotta crop her at some point. And I've just made the decision here that I'm going to crop it in an odd way and crop it below the elbow and above the wrist. So not normally a place you prefer to crop, but it's not to say that it's not a deal breaker for the picture. It just kind of takes it out of the competition area, but I love it in other ways, so I don't care now. All right, so her face is a little bright, and we know that because Caucasian skin should be, according to the Ansel Adams zone system kind of thing, should be right on this line or about there. Again, it's a guideline, not a rule, but one stop over 18% gray. Yes, David's saying, is the focus sharp enough? You know, it's probably close, but I could do both of these pictures and still be happy, but I love this one. So this is the one I gravitated to right away. So I'm just going to go ahead and stick with it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I could probably do two. I could probably rescue that other one with a bit of sharpening. But this one is so good. So I do need to darken this picture a little bit because of the exposure on her face. It's just a bit bright. So I'm actually going to use exposure here. Oops, don't do that. You want to make sure you're on your background layer when you do that. I'm going to lowering the exposure of just the crown area. We don't need that. We need over the whole thing. So I'm just going to pull the whole thing back a little bit and then check again. And that's looking a lot better. Because my retouching tends to brighten the image a bit, because I tend to be a little more heavy-handed on the lightening than the darkening. I know that coming out of this, I'm going to be a bit brighter than I went into it. So I don't mind being a little bit under here for the skin. And then shadow detail in the hair, we have to make sure that we don't have any black areas. So areas where, if your exposure warning is set here, you can turn on and off the exposure warning for shadow or not. The one for, obviously, the top exposure warning is always there. And I have mine set to like 253 is when it's going to throw a fit, not at 255, which is already gone. So 253, close call, good enough. Shadow warning, I want to throw it at 3, not at 0, because 0 is obviously, it's gone. 3 is low, so I want to say, hey, tell me when it's low. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use either shadow or black to pull those up. Shadow kind of brightens a lot more of the image than black will. So I just want to pull the blacks up because I like this in the background. So how I made this background is kind of cool, a little bit different. So I took a piece of what's called cinefoil, and it's like aluminum foil, but it's black, and it's a little bit heavier duty. So heavy duty aluminum foil painted black, think of it like that. It's special for photography. And you can use it for all kinds of cool things. Like if you're trying to get a modifier to do a certain thing, or you're having light leaks in a certain place. What I did is stretch this over the top of just a standard 7-inch Paul Buff reflector on an Einstein. And then I took a knife and I poked 7 or 8 holes in it that were kind of like slits. And just put it on there, and this is what you end up with. And this picture doesn't show it as well as some of the others, where you just get a really kind of interesting wavy effect. And I just wanted something a little different. It was just a piece of red paper. And I thought, hey, let's make something a little special out of it. So that's what I did there. And that's one of those things I want to try and do more on the member channel, is because they're not really highly polished videos, but I think they're worthwhile, is talking through some of those things I'm doing as I'm doing them, and then making like video snippets out of those things and maybe combining them together. I still have to figure out what I want to do with that exactly, but there's lots of these little tricks that I do just to kind of add a little variance to the shot, because on red paper it'd be fine. We'd add a texture, but this is more inspirational to me. And we can obviously change the red to whatever color we'd like. All right, so here, again, I checked my exposure warning and I'm all good. I don't care if there's a few bright spots on the shells, because they are practically mirrors and you will see them. But I want to make sure that I have information in the shadows, so I know that I do here. And this is all good. So that's good. Now, I do not do any colorizing before we go to Photoshop. We go to Photoshop, we do the skin, we bring it back, and we colorize it. And we do that because colorizing might change over time. I might decide, hey, I want to do a black and white. I might want to do a cooler or a warmer. And if I have to go back and redo the skin every time, that's kind of silly. So what we want to do is we want to do the skin first, and then make decisions on color tone when we come back. Now, even in Photoshop, I do the skin first, because skin, you know, it has to be done. You're just going to have to do it. So just get it done and move on. So we're going to do that right away. And so I'm going to turn off my exposure warning. This looks good to me. Exposure is good. Remember, once you leave Photoshop, you really can't mess with the exposure anymore, because it's not going to do the same thing. Right now, we're operating on raw data from the camera. And once we leave Capture One and we come back, it's not going to work that way anymore. So I have this something with Streamlabs set where it doesn't like really long messages. So if you keep it a little tighter, it won't throw a fit like that. Anyway, so all right, let's go to Photoshop. So how I do that is I have a recipe set up here, and it basically just sends it over as a TIFF, and it will use a description of whatever this is in the metadata. So if I go down and I look at my metadata, which I've added to my process recipe page here, and I just look for the description here, Mermaids in Fall River. I'm going to change that because it is the Mermaid in Fall River, but it's Rachel. So someone say, I'm just going to put the word Rachel in front of it. Rachel Mermaid in Fall River. just do Rachel Mermaid. Good enough. So now it's going to be Rachel Mermaid with this file name appended to the end of it. And that's just my personal preference because I like to keep things organized, and it just makes life easier. So let's do that. So I'm just going to click that, make sure that the description is filled in, and click Process Variant. And that will open it up in Photoshop. Ta-da! All right, so first thing we're going to do is we're just going to frequency separate this. So for everyone who's like, oh, frequency separation is terrible, it's not terrible. It's not a technique, it's a tool. And if you use it poorly, it's going to be a bad result. Oh, somebody just subscribed. Thank you, Daniel. So what I want to do is I'm going to frequency separate it, but I'm going to use it like a sane person. So when you come out of the other side, the skin should look great. It shouldn't be blurry. It shouldn't look like it shouldn't look like it was touched at all. It's just going to be great skin. So let's do that. So I did put my frequency separation action in the description of the video, and you can grab that for free. And I'm just going to separate this 16, and I'm just going to look at how blurry I want this to be. So, oops, hey, how about we just type a 5 instead of 65? And let's do it twice, why don't we? 5. So I'm just looking at texture, and it's still a bit tight. 4, that's a little better. So I want just the colors, not so much the texture. I think 5 is where we're going to go. And we can sanity check that. If we go to the high layer and alt-click on the eyeball and zoom in, we shouldn't see color anywhere except in the lips, maybe. If we have color anywhere else, then we didn't quite separate it by definition very well. So this looks good. So that's how we know if you have the right frequency separation value. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the high layer, and we're going to quickly do this one. This won't take very long because she has amazing skin, and I use the healing brush. I'm not a fan of the mixing brush. I know a lot of people do that, but I like the variations in the skin a bit so it looks more real. So I'm just going to go and grab some of the things that are catching my eye. Now, she has some awesome freckles, and I don't want to get rid of those. I love freckles, so we're going to be just very careful with what we do decide to get rid of here. And I'm zoomed out, not probably as far as I should be in reality, but just looking for little variations. And you see there's not a lot on her. Great makeup work, and it just makes life a lot easier. We almost always have hair and makeup at every project, and every client mandatorily has hair and makeup, whether it's included with the package or they're paying extra for it. You know, even not just for the fact that some people can do their makeup really well, but there's something to be said for the experience of having her hair and makeup done. Like my wife does her hair and makeup wonderfully, but when she came to the studio to have her shoot, I had someone doing her hair and makeup, and she's like, you know, if you were feeding me grapes, this would just be the most amazing thing ever. So there's something to be said for the experience of the photo shoot, and my photo shoots are not cheap. And it's not because I say my photography is much better than anybody else's, but the experience that they get makes that number or that price feel like it's why I charge that. So I'm just going to get rid of soften a bit of these forehead lines here a bit. Now, the cool thing about body painting is it's super forgiving. I mean, we can smear the hell out of this thing and it'd still work out well. But I don't want to go overboard with it. That one might not work. Just looking for a little bit of whatever that is. All right, so down here, super fast. Just looking for anything that kind of draws my eye and say, let's just fix that, 2 seconds. We could do that in here too, like if we wanted to soften this up a bit, because the paint didn't quite stay in her elbow as she moved around. I know, pesky people moving, unbelievable. Just looking for any kind of little imperfections in the paint. I think this spot there's a little dark. You can do so much with body paint. Now here's a funny one. So I need to sample, I need to fix this streak here. And it's similar to these, it's a diamond pattern. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sample from the middle of this one here and then use it up here so that I can kind of get rid of that piece that must have made she had an itch or something and she just itched it and didn't think about the fact she was touching the painted skin. before it was dry. So I'm just trying to make sure that I have more color coverage so it doesn't look blotchy, like some of these blotches in here. Just super fast fix. And then there's a little bit of fade to green there. Okay, that's easy. So that's one half of frequency separation. Let's do the other half. And that's the high layer. So S, I use my clone stamp here. And I'm just going to go through and quickly, not zoomed in too far, because this is not my wife, but she's a good friend. But it's like how close you get is how much time you're willing to put into it. So I say how much do you really like this person is how close you want to get. Because if you get in here, you're going to be like, oh, now there's all kinds of little things to peck at, right? Don't do that, right? No one's going to see that unless they're buying a huge print of this. And if they are, well, then you're certainly going to be taking your time on going through and retouching it properly. But because it's a personal project and 16 by 24 is probably the size it'll be printed if it is printed, this will be fine at that resolution. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Keep them a little on the short side, though, because the chat bot doesn't like super long messages. A little fall off here on the makeup. There's a hair, get rid of that. I don't mind some hair. I know a lot of people are like, oh, why don't you fix all the hair? I'm like, why? In some cases, yes, but in general, I really don't care if there's a little bit of hair. If it's bothering me, then I'll remove it. If it's not bothering me, why remove it? I haven't got time for that. So just super fast, not taking a million years. Again, if we wanted this to be a very serious retouch, we would probably do a lot more dodge and burn than a lot less frequency separation. But this is good enough for what we're doing here. It's like this hair here bothers me, so let's take that one out. Okay, super fast here. Super fast. Any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We could go and get rid of these creases too if we want to. They don't bother me. They're part of anatomy. And I think that that's one of those lines I draw is if it doesn't bother me and it's part of anatomy, I tend to leave it alone. I want realism in my photos. If I was looking for more of an illustration type look, then yes, I would remove it. And I have, but for this one, I'm not going to. There we go. That's done. So here's the before and after on the frequency separation. It shouldn't look like much happened. Her skin looks totally real. I don't think she has bad skin to start with, though, which is awesome. So I'm going to do, because this photo might get big, we're at 714 meg now, is we're going to go ahead and Control-Alt-Shift-E. That's clone stamp visible, or stamp visible, I should say. And then we're going to destroy the frequency separation layers. Actually, I might not do that right away, but as this gets bigger, I'm happy to destroy these because frequency separation is a lossless action, meaning it doesn't cost us anything to do it and then do it again and do it again and do it again. So normally I would get rid of it. I'm going to keep it just in case because we didn't do our background yet. So one of the other things I like to do is use this solar curve, and I don't think there's a link to it down below, but I did do a video on the solar curve before, and I'm giving you my solar curve. So if you want it, go grab it. It's just in my iHelp layers. And what that looks like is this. And it's this is what the curve looks like. It's kind of a train wreck. And I do this in Capture One as well as in Photoshop, depending on the project. You can do it in either one. So what this does is helps you see imperfections in the background and, well, anywhere else. You can use it for skin retouching too. If you're looking for things like, what's this line here, you turn that off and see, well, there's a line here, there's something going on. So it's just helping you see things, but what it's really doing for me is helping me spot dumb things like that. Sensor dirt will just destroy you in print competition. So because we're frequency separated still, we have to do this maybe twice, once on the high layer and once on the texture layer. And we can leave this on, by the way, when we're working. And I'm just going through this and seeing if there's anything else that's jumping out at me. It's a great sanity check for things that you may not see that a judge will see, because they're looking for that kind of thing, like on purpose. They're like, did this person take care of sensor dust? Because a professional photographer would take care of that. And that's really what the competition is for, is to separate everybody from everybody else. Who are the best photographers? Well, if you're a good photographer, you don't leave sensor dust. Mark says he uses the Capture One version of the solar curve. Yeah, it is so good. Definitely use it. This also helps me spot like that. It just looks odd, doesn't it? Like, what is going on there? There's something not quite right here. So I'm going to work on the high layer and see if that is, so is it a texture thing? It appears to be a texture thing. And it's not just a texture thing. It looks like it's on both. I'm going to undo that then. And we're going to go and we're going to do a dodge and burn layer on this anyway. So let's do that because something is obviously not quite right there. So just little things like that. Why do I care about that little spot? Again, if I print this 16 by 24, that's going to show up. Okay, so let's dodge and burn this bad boy. So I just use an action to create my layer stack. It doesn't do anything magical. It just creates this set of layers for me. I don't use this one anymore. So this is usually for the eyes. This one is for the body. And then these are my dodge and burn. And all they are just layers like this. They're curves. And they're subjective. They're not like, oh, I set this thing, according to the following mathematical curve. Just throw a curve on there and then turn the mask on so it's black. So the goal is that we're going to paint with a white brush with a low flow. I don't use a low opacity. I leave my opacity at 100% almost all the time. I don't really play with opacity much. I flow. So flow is, it's going to lay down pigment slowly over time, where opacity is, it lays it down at whatever the opacity is, the same every time, which means you can get weird edges, and it's just, I don't know, I just like flow better. It's more painterly to me. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this luminosity, and I haven't done this in a while. I want to show why I use this. So this is my gray layer. This is how we convert an image to gray, I call it value view, because you're looking at just the values from black to white. And you just set something to gray, just like that. So you can just do this to 0050 or 128 across the board is gray. And then you set that to color. And this will give you your true color. Now you can set it to hue as well. It's the same thing. Good morning, Scott. From Scott to Scott. So this is how I convert to gray. Why don't I do it the other way? So the more common way most people do this is they do say, well, why don't you just grab a hue and saturation adjustment layer and do that? It's the same thing. It is not the same thing. It is a very different thing. And so let's take 2 seconds and I will show you that. So I'm just going to create a new layer here. B for brush, 100% flow, and I'm going to grab a color, really bright color. Let's say, let's grab this red. Put red here, and we'll grab a blue. This, we'll grab a yellow, and we'll grab a green. Just so we got all the family there. All right. So according to what we just talked about, let's show this with a value layer. So we turn the value layer on. You see that we have 4 unique values because they are unique. Yellow is brighter than blue, right? If you look at it, your common sense says that. But if you use hue and saturation adjustment layer and take the saturation all the way down, these are all the same color. So don't use the hue and saturation adjustment layer to take the saturation out of an image thinking you're doing yourself a favor. This is not the same thing. This uses a different color model. There's 2 color models inside of Photoshop. There's hue, saturation, and lightness, and hue, saturation, and brightness. They are different things. And you can see clearly that Photoshop treats them differently. So just be aware when you pull saturation out of an image, I don't mind using this to desaturate an image a bit, but if you're looking to do a black and white, this is a really horrible way to do that, just because of that. And I don't think a lot of people know that. It's a kind of a geeky Photoshop trick. All right, so what I want to do then is I want to grab a curve, and it's a subjective curve, meaning we're going to play with it. The goal behind this curve is to move it around so that we can see any areas that are blotchy in her skin. And we're going to start in her face here. move the curve to whatever you need so you can see. So I'm going to go and click on the mask there, B for brush. We're going to leave opacity at 100, the flow at 1, and I'm going to go and just kind of brighten up these dark areas that I see. And if it's too aggressive, put your opacity down to 50%. Just hit 5 on your keyboard, and that will bring the opacity down. It just seems like it's a more aggressive. Like if you don't like this dark area here, then just use this little bit of brightness here to help that. And again, we go back and we can move this curve, whatever we need to do to make this curve work. No rules. So there's a spot there. So we'll just go and again, just brighten it up a little bit. And this is another one of those things. Don't zoom in because you're like, oh, there's all kinds of stuff to do. Yeah, don't do that. Unless that's, your wife, then do it. But in general, unless it's a larger print, or if you're more of a professional retoucher, that is how you do dodge and burn at a professional level. You will get down in there and you'll spend hours on a picture, but that's why those people are paid what they're paid, and that's the look that certain magazines enjoy. For my client work and personal work, I don't want to spend that much time on it, and I don't know that the look can look overbaked, kind of, for lack of a better term. So the dark side of her face here, I want to do that too, but I can't really see that with this curve. You can flip this curve upside down. So you can just do this with it. Oops. And work on the negative side. So again, the same rule applies. Just get the curve to do whatever you want to do, but it's going to be the opposite. So if you think you want to darken an area, you're actually lightening that area a little bit. So you're just looking for anything that you think might stick out a bit. So this is a trick for managing the darker sides of the face. So to reset it, we'll just reset it there. Okay. Let's move down the body. Let's do the chest because we know this area had a problem earlier. So we just want to yank on the contrast here. And we're just looking for anything that might be a problem. And I think this area here just needs a little bit of something. I think the lightness is it. That looks better to me. You do have to be careful, not so much in the chest area, but in the face. You can change the way a person looks pretty dramatically by adjusting these settings too much. And dodging and burning can resculpt a face. So be mindful of that. And we do know there's a crease here too, because of that silver curve kind of showed off some issues here. So let's really yank on this curve so we can see it. Here we go. And I want to lighten this here a little bit. This is a great way to remove panty lines, by the way. If you have those in boudoir shots or bra strap lines, this is a really great way to do that. Instead of trying to clone stamp them out, it just never looks right. This way you're using their pixels of their skin and their little hairs and all that stuff is still the same as it was. It didn't change, so it looks perfect once you've just brightened or darkened it. Which, by the way, you can do this entire operation inside of Capture One as well. If you're looking to stay inside of that product and trying to avoid using Photoshop for whatever reason, then that's a method you can do. I am a huge fan of Photoshop, and Capture One is a great raw processor, but it is not a retouching platform, and nor should it be. I don't mind the fact that I can tweak my images in Capture One, but it shouldn't have all kinds of things. And a lot of people are like, oh, we need a border capability inside. Why? Why would you want a border capability? It's going to be underpowered unless they offer every option under the sun, and then it's going to be annoying. And just like inside of Photoshop, the fact that it has the ability to do animation and 3D, and that just seems like it's not the right tool. Just my opinion. So any area in here, see this is a little bit dark, so I'm gonna again adjust my working curve just a bit. I tend to find that if it's under this horizontal, it just seems to work a little better for the area of interest. So I'm just gonna work on that, and then what I'm trying to do is equal the contrast. You see these are just a little bit bright compared to their neighbors. So let's bring those down just a little bit so they all kind of fit in. And then this thing here, let's go back, and since we still have our frequency separation, let's just go ahead and just remove that out of the high layer. Again, looking for anything that is just jumping out at me. Maybe this mark here. Okay, good enough. All right, so we'll turn off that, turn off the black and white. Let's use the rest of these dodge and burn layers. So the overlay highlights layer, make sure you hit D for default. So you go back to black and white, painting with white on her eyes. And I'm gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of, we're gonna pop that catch light a bit. And I'm just using a white brush, 1% flow, 100% opacity. And I can really work on that. Just maybe across the top of her eyes for this one. Something like that. Just adds a little bit of yoink to it. It looks good, doesn't look overly done. I mean, when you see the before and after here, it looks overdone because you see the before and after. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, by the way, take a moment and click the like button. I see you've got 11 people watching and 3 likes, so either there's 8 of you that are crying about this, or you're enjoying it, but you haven't clicked the like button yet. So friendly reminder, and I appreciate it. All right, so dodge and burn. This is the subjective part of this. So this is where I want to be. I want to play like an artist, right? I want to do something. So I'm going to use my black and white, and I'm going to knock the opacity of this down to 50%, just because I think that it's being a bit aggressive in this picture. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to go over a little bit of the light, what's already light. Like you can see down the middle of her nose, for example. And we want to brighten this area here just a bit. Here. And then under here. Here. And then we'll do the patented snot trough, which is not called, that's like Cupid's bow, but I think it's funnier to say it's not trough. All right, and then you can also do it across the lips, but I tend to use this one on the lips. So if you use this one here and you just go like this, you can add a little bit of shine to the lip. I am using a tablet. I'm using a Wacom. I can actually show it to you here. So I'm using a Wacom Medium tablet. This is the Pro, and just a standard pen. I do like the small one, but when I bought this, the small one was not an option. They kind of got rid of that and everybody went to medium. So this is what I'm sticking with. I use this only when I'm doing skin. So if I'm, or I'm painting, but if I'm just using tools inside of Photoshop or Capture One, I'm using a mouse. I have my mouse is right next to my tablet here, and I'll drop the pen, pick up the mouse, and go back and forth. Because this is fiddly. If you're trying to do things inside of just a regular piece of software, it'd be like trying to use this inside of Excel. Like, why would you do that to yourself? You use a mouse, so you're a lot faster with it. Everybody's faster with it. But if you bought one of these and you're not using it because you're not comfortable with it, like I was, I think I owned like 3 of them before I finally picked it up, make yourself use it for about 2 weeks on everything. And then you'll find what areas that you're better at or faster at. And I'll tell you that if you retouch with the Wacom tablet, I'm about 400% faster. And I think the picture works out better when I use this than if I'm trying to use the mouse. If I'm on the road and I forgot my tablet or I didn't bring it with me and I end up having to do some retouching without this thing, I feel just so hindered. So if you don't have one of these, not that you need to buy the Wacom brand one. I mean, there's some competitors now, but I tell you, this thing is just a lifesaver. So much faster retouching. So yes. So that's the short answer, long answer to that one. So yep, just added a little bit of highlight here to her lip. Just adds a little bit of oomph. This is a method, by the way, to add fullness to lips. Not that she needs it because she's got awesome lips, but you could go around the outside with a little bit of this highlight, and then you can use hit X, and then you want to go through the middle and add a little bit of darkness. So what that will do is help to fill the lips out a bit. That's just a trick that you use if you've got somebody that's got thinner lips and you want to add a little oomph to it. She doesn't need this at all, but there you go. Now you know. So again, just using the brightness here to kind of augment whatever part of this that I want to do. Yeah, get a small one or get a medium. Don't get a large or an extra large. I've owned every size Wacom tablet they make, and the large one was huge. This thing sits in front of my keyboard, and then my hand my left hand rests on my keyboard. I don't use the buttons, by the way, on the side of the Wacom at all. I don't use them. They're dead to me. So you could do like the bamboo tablet, which is, I think, pretty inexpensive. And I think those are like 99 bucks or something like that. And I think that's just as good. I don't use the buttons. That's just personal preference. So I'm using my brush here and just going over and brightening areas or hitting X to darken an area. So I'm just trying to add form to form here. So not that you need to do a lot, but this is that polish that can add so much to an image that people don't do. Tormund says he has the small one and it's super. Yeah, I agree. If I had the small one when I bought my Pro, I would have gotten the small one, but they didn't. Mark says he has an X Pen graphics display and he finds it very useful. Yeah, I don't know that I could draw on a display. I have a Microsoft Surface tablet, or a laptop that the top pops off, but it's hot. Like when my hand rests on it, it gets really warm. So I use what's called an anti-fouling glove, which basically is a glove that covers just your pinky and your ring finger, and then your hand rests on the board. So the anti-fouling glove is actually used in charcoal or pencil or something like this. You don't put your hand on your canvas, but you can use one in the digital world as well, and it helps with the heat that might come off of that surface. Okay, so I like this is just fine. So let's do a little bit on the outfit as well. So I may just actually create a new layer for this. So this is her skin. So this is all good and this is all good. Let's create a new one just for her skin, or just for the dress. So I'm gonna go up here, new layer, shift backspace, and I'm gonna choose gray. And then I'm gonna fill this and I'm gonna change it to overlay. I don't use a clear layer. I know some people are like, why don't you just use a layer with nothing on it? There's a problem with Photoshop where the edges of the brush sometimes cause an artifact, and it's really obvious and it looks terrible. But if you fill it with gray, then the brush doesn't do that. It's a bug that's been in Photoshop for years and they just haven't resolved it. Mark says it does take a bit getting used to, and it does not get hot, but it seems to work well without the glove. Yeah, I don't like fingerprints on my screen either, so the anti-fouling glove is good for that, so I don't make mark all over it. Okay, so what I want to do here is I'm going to just go and highlight some of these parts of this dress using this white brush. So I'm just going over parts of the dress. Nothing spectacular. And use R to rotate. So as you're drawing, your hand gets a nice normal movement. You hit X again if you want to draw with a darker color. So if you're looking to add a little bit of contrast to this area, you can. And I'm just going and playing with a bit of this. I thought these pearls would look nice with a little more shine on them. All right, escape will bring you back to normal. So here's what we did there. So it's not a big difference, but I like it. Okay, so we got that done. And we could do that, by the way, in the hair as well. So if we want to, we can take some time and say, well, we want a little bit more shine in through here. Nothing wrong with that. So before and after. Do presets really help in retouching? Can't understand it reduces work apart from any other benefit. You know, I don't use presets because to me, each picture is its own thing. However, if you have a set of images, let's say you're delivering a client product suite and you've got 25 pictures that all have to sing, you know, from the same hymnal, then yes, you do want to preset, but you'll probably create the preset based on the first image and then just simply copy it across. You can do that a bunch of different ways. Like in Capture One, you can simply sync it by, you know, clicking on the first one, clicking up for these adjustments to this variant, find the last one, and then copy all those adjustments down. But to me, I don't look at my pictures and go, I think I'm going to use Aster number 73 on this one because it's my style. I don't tend to work that way. I just fiddle with each picture until I like it, because if you like it, by definition, that's your style. If you were to take a pile of 1,000 pictures and take the ones you really love and put them over in a certain stack, it's going to be different than someone else's pictures that they take from that same stack. And that look is what you prefer. And if you're messing with your pictures and applying different tones and contrasts and so on, you're going to find that you get a look that's yours. Yes. So David says presets for metadata. Yeah, absolutely have to use presets for metadata, because putting in your copyright information and phone number and all that stuff constantly is just bad. Thank you, Steam, for running in the background there. Okay, so we got that done. Let's do something with the background. So what I'm going to do is I have to select the background first, and she's the background. So we're going to select, and we're going to select subject. And that'll probably be 80% correct. And it's pretty good. It's gotten better, I think. And then I want to do select, and I hold down my shift key when I use select and mask, and that will launch the legacy version of the product. And then I would just simply use this brush to go and find any areas where I think that the product might not be doing a great job, especially in the hair here. And probably the pointiness of this crown a bit. I oftentimes hold down my Alt key and click on the outside too in the white to say this is a color I don't want, so that if it's adjusting itself and you see that doing that, that's helpful. Hit OK. And then I'm going to save that. I just hit 1. And that actually creates a channel here. So if you need it, you can just hit Control and then tap the thumbnail if you want to load it, or you can do it the hard way and go up, select, load selection, find it in here, and click OK. It's so much easier to do that. All right, so once we have that done, we can do anything we want to do with it. So let's go grab a texture inside a bridge. I love bridge. There's this really great set of textures too. I should probably get you guys some links to some of these that I like. But since we're doing this, let's use my Painterly textures. So I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I launched my member area today. So if you want to support the channel, that's the best way to do it. I'm going to be giving away textures over time in that channel. So that's my way of saying thanks and giving away textures that normally people pay a lot of money for them, but if you're going to help me out, well, let's play that game. All right, so I'm just looking here. I create two kinds of textures. I create one like this, and I create one that actually has a more of a three-dimensional texture to it. I don't tend to use that one very often, but it is there. So I'm going to grab this and drag it in. Let's use this one. And it's under everything, which is not handy. And they all, by the way, have names from books that I like. So this is obviously the Dune fan set here. I'm going to flip this way. This is where the tab, see, this is where the pen drives you absolutely nuts. Just reach for the mouse and be done with it. And then let's load that channel and change the blending mode to something. I didn't even use my mask that I created there. And let's mask her out. Is that terribly compelling? What if we double it up? Maybe. You know, I don't know that I like the red that much either. So let's mess with it. This is where I would use the hue and saturation adjustment, because we're only messing with one layer here. And we can't get a lot out of that unless we colorize it. And that might be horrible. Let's find out. I don't know. Looking for Looking for something. I think I like that. Purpley better than the original, which was this. Let's put those together. So yeah, if I do things too fast in here, let me know. So what I did is I clicked on one, control clicked on the other, and then shift click on this, which will take whatever's highlighted and put it in the group. So in fact, I don't know that you even need to shift click anymore. Yeah, so that's the default behavior now. You used to have to hold down shift. So if you highlight layers and hit the folder, it'll put them in there. Now you can turn them on and off. Super easy. All right, that looks fine. I want a little bit more punch from that. So I'm going to add any adjustment layer. So I usually just use curves and clip it. And I'm not going to do anything with the layer other than change its blending mode to something and see if I can get more of something out of this. Something that doesn't suck, because some of those are terrible. No, none of these are loving me. Oh, hey, that's kind of interesting, isn't it? So if we lower the opacity of this, by definition, we'd be doing that. Do I like that? I don't know. It just seemed to speak to me, like it just kind of jumped right off and said, "Hey, look at me." But maybe, yeah, you know, it does have a bit of something going on to it, doesn't it? So I do like that. Well, thank you, William. Sent me a cup of coffee. I appreciate that. I like that coffee site. It's cute. It's like super quick, easy way to show appreciation and not get all bogged down in all the other things that are out there. I'm trying to be picky about what platforms I choose to do that on. And like that's kind of one of the reasons I got away from Patreon. I just think it's so much to manage all those things. And realistically, this platform's right here, and now they offer it. So why not just use it? Okay, so I like that. So let's take this into Capture One and see how it looks. So I'm just going to hit save in here, and that's going to take a minute just because of the way that my drives are configured. But I like what we did with the background. So for those of you joining late here, we came from here to here. And so we've retouched all the skin. We've added some dodge and burn. Her skin looks realistic. We've messed with the background a bit. And we can do a lot more of that inside of Capture One as well if we choose to. I'm trying to find harmony here with this. I thought about doing just something really totally wacky with the background as well, but I think just throwing that texture on there made it good enough for me. One thing I need to do though is, hey, look at that, Scott is a channel sponsor, woo! Thanks, man. I think you're my first one. First or second here, I don't know. That's awesome. One thing I need to do though is I need to blur this texture because I'm seeing this and her hair will no longer be in focus, and this wall is way behind her, then this should not be in focus. So I'm just going to double click on the smart object, go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur. This is why we're using a mouse, by the way. We don't have to deal with that. Whatever it pops up as is whatever we use with the frequency separation is good enough for me. So it was a 5. So now this looks better, and it's a lot more forgiving to when you're looking at the edges that you might have to mess with. All right, so let's go in. I'm gonna hit save again, but let's go to Capture One, which will already have this. All right, so here's a Capture One workflow tip. I already know this picture exists in 2 places. It will be in select, and now there'll be the TIFF version of this raw in output. Because of that, I want to let myself know that. So what I do is I set the color tag to blue. So that means that this one has a twin, for sake of anything else. Yes, thank you very much, Scott, for your support in the channel. I greatly appreciate that. That makes life so much easier on me and my ability to show you guys stuff that I really want to share. That, you know, some of these channels, like trying to show any body painting on Instagram, you know, good luck. So I really appreciate the help. It's awesome. Anyway, so this 9 here means that there's a raw version, or this is the raw of a retouched version. Eventually, this will be deleted because realistically, if we go back to Photoshop, this bottom background layer here, which I didn't touch, this is the raw file as it was handled in Capture One, set the levels and everything else we wanted and brought it in. Why do we need to, again, keep this 50 or 60 megapixel beast around when we already retouched it, right? So I'm not going to do that right away, but after a year or so, when my drive starts to fill, these blue ones become eligible for destruction. So if we go into output, we can see that Rachel Mermaid is right there, and I'm going to color that one purple. That means that it has a blue version elsewhere. Now, if you're thinking, well, why you have 2 copies of everything? It's a waste of space. They're not the same thing. One's a raw and can be manipulated by Camera Raw or Capture One or your raw processor. And the other one is a fully retouched piece of work. It's done. So I don't care about the raw anymore because I have this. So I'd have to start all the way over again if I went back to the raw. I could probably just delete the raw right now, really, but I don't. Just like all of us, I want to keep stuff because you never know, but I know not to do that. All right, so let's play with this now. So we're back in Capture One. Control B to minimize that, and let's look at messing with the exposure a bit. Now, when I say that, see, we got a bit brighter as I knew we would, because when I do retouch skin, I tend to gravitate toward the lightening rather than the darkening. You're supposed to be a little equal on that, and I just am not. So I know I need to pull that down, but exposure now doesn't do the same thing. It kind of makes the whole image muddy. I tend to find that I want this white point to stay where it is, and I like to use brightness. So brightness affects more the middle of this. So I would pull brightness down a little bit, and that would have the same effect. But it also allows me to darken the rest of the image a little bit. And again, we can check our exposure warning and everything is perfect. It is just perfect. Hey, Tormund is now a channel sponsor. Awesome. Thanks, guys. You guys are making my day. Totally appreciate that. Okay, so we're good there. We like the exposure, and I like this. We know we have shadow detail everywhere. Do I want a little bit more shadow in here? Maybe. So we could pull that up a bit. But again, I tend not to use shadow here. I prefer to use black, and it's just personal preference. So I'm just going to pull the black up a little bit. Okay, so that's the exposure. Set our contrast. We want any contrast. I don't tend to use this slider much. If I do, I tend to go this way with it. I just like that bit of softness it tends to add. But that's personal preference. I mean, you do you, right? I think I do like a little bit of that, maybe. I'm torn. I don't mind that either. Yes, I do. I like this better. I'm going to go a little bit negative. By the way, if you hold down your Alt key and you're fiddling with these, it'll go much slower. So if you're trying to micro adjust this, or you're using a Wacom pen, even though I told you to put it down and use your mouse, and you're still using it, well, hold on your Alt key with your left hand so your pen actually works a little better. Okay, so let's go to color. And my standard mode of operation here is to just start messing with it. So I'm gonna start in the shadows, and there, again, no rules, all the way around. So we have to go all the way and see if there's something we like. And where we like it is where we're gonna start to develop our style, which is why I don't use presets, because this is its own thing. Okay, something right in here is just kind of appealing to me. So I'm gonna do in here, I think, is really like that. So once I get the tone about where I want it, then I'm going to go and grab this up and down thingy. How much do I want? A little bit or a lot? Tormund says he's learned so much. Oh, from me. Yay. Capture One since version 7. I've been with it since version 6, and it was really buggy monster back then. So, yeah, kudos to us for sticking through it with them. All right, so I do tend to like that teal. I would tell you I tend to land more down in here usually, but not for this picture. This is not. Yeah, I'm tending to like this over here better right now. I mean, reserve the right to change my mind, but for the shadows, I like that teal. Just, yeah, that's nice. All right, midtones. Same thing. Poor Man's Color Theory says the midtone or the master will end up over on here. So let's just start that direction. and see what happens. And we're gonna have to go all the way around the horn though. That's the rule. And yeah, no, nope, 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 less, nope. Yeah, you know what? If I can't find anything that's positive, I'm just going to double click and put it back. I might choose to increase or decrease the brightness of the midtones here. Again, I don't use this tool that way. I would prefer to use the sliders in the other page, but again, you use the tools you want to. There's 18 ways to do the same thing here. And then highlight I don't play with in color because it tends to add this like weird cast to things. So I don't tend to use that. And then master is how warm or how cool you want the overall image to be. So I want the skin tone to be proper. That's really my goal. If the skin tone's a weird color, then it's got to be on purpose. So if I'm going down here, this looks bad, less bad. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way up, and I'm looking to see that the skin tone is the right color. If it's too red, like it is there, or too green, like it is there, I need to kind of find what looks right, and then use this to dial it down. So now it's the right warmth of what I want. I'm going to go back to the highlight. Normally I don't like the highlight, but when I was fiddling with this, it didn't bother me that I added a little bit of warmth in the highlights here. Maybe. You know what? It isn't doing enough, so let's just leave it there. Okay, so that's good. Color's done. Enough for now. And I will normally walk away from this and then come back and look at it later and see if I've discovered something. But one more thing I want to do is we want to pop some of this outfit and her hair. So I'm going to create another layer. And again, you don't have to do it this way. You can just hit B for brush. And we'll get our brush right away. Use your bracket keys. Again, I am using a mouse still. I am no longer using my Wacom tablet because I don't use the pressure sensitivity inside of Capture One. There was a bug for a long time where all of a sudden it would create this line straight up, and it was so annoying that I kind of weaned myself away from using a pen inside of Capture One just because it drove me absolutely batty. So we are going to apply a clarity with this, and if you watch my video on clarity, don't touch the skin with clarity because God kills a kitten every time you do that, and nobody wants to be a kitten killer. So I don't have to make this exact. I'm not going out of the way to make some sort of super mask or whatever. It's not that important. I just want to get the majority of the hair highlighted without going over her skin or lapping the background. So if you do this, it's going to look terrible. So just be mindful of staying within the boundaries of whatever it is that you're trying to feature with this effect. Like I could make my pen smaller and go down this strand. Is that going to make a difference? I don't know. It might look goofy. Let's try it. But now I'm being fiddly, and I don't like to be fiddly. I just want to get it done and not. I don't know. I shouldn't need to do that. In other words. Okay. So let's hit M for mask, turn that off so we can see what we're doing. Go to clarity. And so we've got 4 flavors of clarity. I tend to like punch in the hair, but that's just personal preference. So let's try that. So I'm going to go all the way to 100% just to see the effect, right? So that's punch. That's natural. That's neutral. And that's classic, which is if you come from Lightroom, this is the only option you have. And just like, oh, punch is the winner. I just love this. It looks very nice. So now how much of it do we want? It's kind of like your layer opacity thing, right? You could add some structure to the hair, but again, I tend to make that, I think that makes it look crispy, and I don't think that's a good thing. So I think that looks great. All right, since we're here, let's create a new layer, and let's do the eyes. So B for brush, and I'm just going to touch her eye here, and eye here, and a bit of the lashes. This. Yeah, so if I hit M, this is what I did. It's nothing like groundbreaking, right? But good enough. M, and I'm going to go and actually create a preset here for eyes. And you see what it does? It sets it to classic, clarity of 17, structure of 24. I just like this effect. It is not, again, it's subtle, If you hold on Alt and click on this, you can see the before and after in the eyes. I'll have to zoom in so you can actually see it. It's all it is. This is that little bit of something, something. And that makes a big difference if you're printing. It looks better. If I were printing this, by the way, I would take care of some of these flyaways and other things out here. I wouldn't leave it like that, but I don't know that I'll print this one, but I love it. I really like this picture. Very happy with it. Okay, and then let's do one more layer. And you could label these too if you're gung-ho. Those eyes. This is hair. And this will be the outfit. All right, so same deal. B for brush, bigger brush. M for mask. Don't touch the skin. Don't touch the outside. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you do just the perimeter, by the way, like this, like you want to catch the whole thing, you can then go up and do this ellipsis and say fill mask, and it'll fill the gap in for you. So that's good enough. And then maybe a bit on the crown. Something like this. And I don't mind going over the hair, but don't go over the face. M for mask. And I say that and I pound on that just because it looks bad, right? If you don't think about it and you just get it done, you're like, why is her skin all weird in that spot? No, it's because it's got clarity on it. Not to say that clarity on skin can't be useful. If you have a texture problem and you need to correct it in certain areas, then you can certainly use clarity, but that is such a minor thing. And realistically, I would not do it here. I would do it in Photoshop, and I do a completely different set of tools. But if you're a Photoshop hater and you just want to stay inside of Capture One, well, that's your option. All right, so then I want to, again, I'm probably going to go with punch, yank it all the way up, and that blows the exposure and all these things out. So that's not going to happen. Natural, neutral, classic. And I tell you, classic here is probably my favorite just for outfits. It adds just that little bit of oomph. We could do punch without it setting to 11 either, but it's just gonna look weird no matter what. So we just know it's not gonna be that one. I think classic is the winner here. So just, again, you see what I'm doing is I kind of go extreme and then I just bring it in until I like it. And then Alt, click. It's subtle, but that's the game we're playing. It's playing that subtle game. My wife just turning the hose on outside to fill up the little kiddie pool. It is hot here today in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Okay, so anything else we want to do to this image? I'm thinking that looks pretty amazing. So here's our before and after. For those of you playing at home, this is just the colorization after Photoshop. It is not the raw. But that's what we did with color grading, and I love it. I'm very happy with that overall effect. So let's save this. So to save it, I go up to my recipes, I uncheck send to Photoshop. We're going to send it to the Copyright Office here in the United States, so that if somebody steals my stuff, I get to sue them. By the way, I have a new lawsuit that I just started. And I can't discuss who it's for, but it's one of those contests, you know, like which Game of Thrones character are you? But somebody used one of my pictures for the thing, and they make a lot of money in advertising for that. So we're going to sue them. I am going to make a series of videos on copyright. Let me know if you think that you'd be interested in this. I guess this is my first question. So there are really 4 phases to copyright as a photographer. The first one is dispelling all the myths, because everybody's got all this dumb information that's wrong, and they keep spreading it to each other. It's kind of like akin to people in high school telling you how cops can pull you over and what rules you have to obey for speeding, or you're just totally making it up. So there's things that people do wrong and know incorrectly. So I got to fix that first, and then how to actually file for copyright, and then how to pursue someone legally. And if you're doing it right, by the way, there's no such thing as a takedown order anymore. We sue them, and we sue them for up to $150,000 per image use. So not that you're going to get that every time, but I haven't had one settle for under 4 figures. And there's once you register and you file for copyright, the door opens up to that. Now, if you're just thinking, well, I'm a photographer, it's already copyrighted, I know that when I click the shutter, yes, you're absolutely right, but you can't do much with that. So I should actually just be talking to the camera now because I'm talking to you and not to the screen. So I want to talk about how to do copyright. And I don't know if that'd be interesting. You tell me in the chat here if you think that's what you want to see. Or so David says he's interested and Tormon says he's interested. So then the fourth thing, and one that's just kind of mind-blowing, is the Copyright Office doesn't really show you what you filed. So if you have to sue someone, you have to produce the filing number. And it's a matter of, well, I know I filed that image, but I don't remember where I put it. You need to be able to produce that filing number and then a piece of paper that shows you've done it. So there's kind of a pain in the butt. But once you've done that, now the litigation gets to start rolling. And no, you don't have to be rich. Your legal fees are usually zero. If you do this the right way, you're not paying anything for your lawyer. It's all handled. And yes, you're going to give up some of your settlement to that lawyer, but if it doesn't cost you anything, and whether win or lose, it doesn't cost you anything, why would you not sue the pants out of everybody you could that's taking your stuff and using it without your permission? And now I'm not suing like people that use my pictures on their screens at home or on their phones. I want you to do that, right? That's why my watermark is subtle. Enjoy my work and share it with people. But if you're going to use it in a commercial way and you're not going to pay for it, well, then we're going to have words, right? And so I want to do a video series on that. It's going to be a little longer and a little more boring. So I'm going to break it up a bit because I know people will be like, I don't have tolerance for listening to that stuff. So anyway, yes, I will get that. I'll get working on that series. So soon. I have some products too I'm going to be talking about as well. I'm not going to be a product review channel, but there are some products I really like, and I do want to kind of talk about those. Was the sound better today, guys, by the way? I know I've been having mic issues, and I've been trying to work on that. Okay, so I want to file that for copyright. I want to put it in my portfolio, and that includes a watermark. So I'm going to check that box. I'm going to go to watermark. I'm going to find, I want a black watermark in this one. I just know that. So I'm going to choose my black watermark and grab the hand, find a position for it. It just wants to be right there. And then play with the opacity a bit so that it's obvious but not distracting from your enjoyment of the image. Something like that. And then I'm going to put this in my printable. So if I decide to send it to my lab, I have a big image prograph printer here too. I don't print a lot of my own stuff, but I could. Probably should. But the cartridges are $700, so that's brutal. Oh, good. Glad the sound is good. Okay, then this is my boudoir brand. Is this an image for boudoir? Maybe. So I might just export it for that. And it puts it in a different, this recipe puts it in a different folder in my Dropbox. These all, by the way, go to Dropbox, except for this one. This one's filed by FTP. I can actually walk through some of that someday. It's a little geeky, but how I file these. So this one goes to a Dropbox folder for my portfolio. This one goes to a Dropbox folder for my printable. This one goes to a Dropbox folder for my boudoir, but uses a different watermark. And that's the reason it's a different recipe, by the way. It's those two things, changing the watermark every time and changing the folder every time. Drove me nuts. So I just created this, and it only has one white watermark, and I have a black version of it, so I'm just going to leave it there. Okay, now client. So who's the client? Well, the client is determined by this thing, the job identifier, and this will be Rachel. So I'm just going to set it to Rachel. And now all of these recipes here will, if we look at the, where's the recipe? Recipe file, puts it in job identifier. That's Rachel's name. Shareable social media. So you see the shareable social media. So this is going to put it in social media folder for Rachel in Dropbox. And I have the watermark actually turned off here, don't I? There it is, up in the corner. Let's move it. So this will give Rachel a copy she can share online, and it sets the resolution to whatever I feel I need it to be. And I usually give people 1800 pixel long versions and 80 quality. So that'll work. So that's going to put that Dropbox for her. And then a digital printable is something I give to paid clients. And that's a 12-inch long, 240 pixel per inch digital without a watermark. So if they wanted to take it and get it printed themselves at a store or whatever, this would put that into a separate folder, again, inside a Dropbox. That it puts words digital print in front of it. It's kind of like the, what do you call it? It's the digital of the print, but I'm trying to sell it as a separate product. So I don't say you get digitals with that. I say you get a digital print or digital backup, because it's not huge. It's not the original resolution. It doesn't print bigger than 8 by 12. I'm a print photographer. I sell prints, big ones. And if I give away a file that's able to print a 70 by 40 inch print and not charge $1,000 for it, I'm not going to be able to feed my family or have a studio or buy cameras or whatever. So anyone who buys a print gets a backup digital print of it, if that makes sense. I am not going to go into sales much, but if you want, I can do a separate video on sales and how I do my sales. So I'm a full-time photographer. This is all I do. I have clients just like every other. I shoot families. I have boudoir. I have body paint clients. I have kids. I've shot babies and all that kinds of stuff. It's all good. It's all business. I have to pay for my studio and my equipment and so on. And my pricing reflects that. And yes, there are people who charge $50 who live on. My neighbor does senior portraits and she gives it away. Super nice lady, but it's not important to her because it's not her main income. So is she a competitor of mine? No, we're not. We're not competitors. We have a completely different product offering, and my pricing is much higher. And so people are like, I don't know how you would survive as a photographer in this day and age. And it's completely possible, but you have to have this refinement to your images that, she's not going to take 5 or 6 hours to retouch a really awesome set of photos, because she knows then she's losing, a lot of time on what is effectively a giveaway. Anyway, I'm ranting. So I'm not going to put, she doesn't get digital printable. This, she doesn't need it. Full size printable. This puts it in another folder, again in Dropbox, but it puts the word full size in front of it, and it puts it in a different folder. That folder is called printable. So this one is under shareable, because this one is given to the client. This one goes under shareable because this one's given to the client. The full-size printable is not given to the client, but I also have to keep myself organized. And if I'm going to print this client's jobs, let's say they have 20 or 30 pictures in this set, I'm not going to open up Capture One and then export each one. Like, I'm just going to do it right now, export it to a printable folder, and then when I go to order those, I just open the client's Dropbox folder. Here's the things I shared with her. Oh, and here's the things I need to print from the same job that are from my eyes only, unless they've purchased a full-size digital. This is for in-person sales. So I meet with a client and I show them their pictures, and then they pick what they want to order and how big they want to order it. This exports that size. Here's one for a yearbook. And then the senior one is the exact same thing as the other two social media, in that it has a different watermark and it puts it in a different folder. It's really the same thing. So there you go. That's what these are. So I'm just going to check the boxes on these 5. And then I'm going to make sure that I have, by the way, yeah, you see the export for the Copyright Office contains a very blatant watermark at the bottom, a different thing. And the preset here I'm going to use is for metadata. So metadata presets allow you to attach all this stuff, like your email addresses, your websites, your whatever, but more importantly, where to get licensing. So my licensing is on my website /licensing, and it contains pricing. So if you wanted to say, how much does it cost me to license this image? Well, it depends on how big you want it. Is it for print or digital? All that, duration and so on, and it'll calculate the price and show you what it is. It's really the Getty calculator, because they're the ones who set the standard for the industry, and that's fine for me. I don't need to get goofy. And then my copyright notice, and then all my rights are reserved, and you have to ask me for all that stuff. So that preset is so that I don't have to do that every single time. So metadata presets are awesome. And when you're importing images, you can attach the metadata preset that way. Let's see what I have. I was going to show you an import, but I'm not really sure what's on that chip. That might be bad. So I'm going to check all those boxes there, and I'm going to hit process. And that's just going to go ahead and launch the batch processor, which you can watch over here. And it will go through and work through all those different images and kick them out. I can't show you history because there's other client stuff in there, but that's how that works. And then it just goes. So any questions? So I know I covered a bunch today. I can go back to the camera here. Any questions on what I did today? I know I went through just a ton of different stuff. I want to do videos that are helpful to you so you see an actual workflow, and it's not like, hey, here's a cool trick for fixing this random thing. And if those are useful, especially if you're troubleshooting, but I think watching the entire process from start to finish is also pretty cool for learning. So you let me know in the comments below or in the chat what you would like to see from this. I do this retouching anyway, so I'm going to be working on these pictures for clients or these personal projects regardless. So if I'm doing that, rather than say throwing it up on Twitch and just doing it for 8 hours in a row, which is kind of the same thing as playing a game, right? I might as well just show you how I'm doing this. Now I'm also doing some 3D stuff. So I've used 3D packages for years, everything from Cinema 4D to Modo to Blender. And I'm starting to get more and more into adding those elements into these images just because I can now. And during this whole COVID-cation thing of learning to make some props, like I made that cool diving helmet, I have a really epic idea for a picture, and that's going to be one of the things I'm going to do in the member area is talk through my diving helmet and the picture we're going to make from that. That's for international print competition, and it's going to be epic. I'm going to do a body paint to match the helmet, and I'll probably show some of that process and then the actual shoot, and then come back here, do the retouching, and walk through the whole thing. So that's what I want to do in the channel, and that's where I want to go with it. So if you have any questions, throw them at me right now. Otherwise, I'm going to say this was good, and we're all good to go. Do I do a video about my website or portfolio? You know, I could. The problem with that is that I have body paint on my website, so there's nudity, and you know YouTube doesn't tend to like that. But this is my website. For those of you who haven't seen it before, so some of my body paint is on here, and I have a whole separate area for body paint up here. You know, all the different things that I do, to do for a living. And I have my boudoir as a separate website, for example, as is my family and high school senior pictures are separate websites. So yeah, this is my portfolio site, and I use Zenfolio for this currently, and they've been doing great for me for years. And that's kind of who I'm using. Tormund's asking, do I do landscapes or cityscapes? I have done some landscapes in the past. I've done some landscapes and some cityscapes. It's not my passion. I live in the middle of Wisconsin, and it's boring here. I mean, you don't have mountains. We barely have hills. We have a lot of corn. And let's say the most important, or let's say the hardest place to take pictures is in your own backyard, and that's really true here. If I'm traveling though, and I'm going to be going out, I'm planning on some traveling here as soon as we're able to. Then yes, I'll be doing some more cityscapes and some more landscapes. But you know what I might do is say, if you have a picture you'd like to see retouched on the channel, let's work that out. Let's figure out how we can get that picture to me, and then I can work through how I would retouch that picture and see what you think, and maybe learn something from that. So that maybe let's open that up. Maybe that's something I'll do for members, is if there's a picture that you would like to see me retouch on the channel, and you're a member, throw me a link to it, and let's figure out how to do that, and we'll just do it on the channel. So then you can see how I would retouch it and learn from it and go, God, I wouldn't do that. That's terrible. At least you'd have at least one way to retouch it. That would be my opinion. So I don't know if there's any other questions. That's about it for today. So I'm going to be working on a few other images later on this afternoon. I don't know that I'm going to live stream those yet. I don't want to destroy the member area with live streams constantly, but I do have a few projects I need to work on that are client things that I can't show anybody yet, because there are a lot of boudoir pictures, for example, and in my contracts it says no one sees this picture. And that's the majority of them, actually. So unfortunately, I can't really share all those. But I've got so much other stuff that I want to share, and this is a great way to do it. So anyway, hey, everybody, thanks for watching today. And if you like this and you've been watching it this far and you haven't clicked the thumbs up button, I'd appreciate the thumbs up, because that's how YouTube finds people to show things to. So I greatly appreciate it. Everybody stay safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.